Thank you so much for staying with us. We continue with football. The Jamaica Premier League enters its 19th match week this weekend, and these are the fixtures down to be contested. Harbour View, they play Tivoli, Humber line up against Arnett Gardens, Montego Bay play Vare United, Waterhouse up against Mount Pleasant, Dunbeholden will be seeing Portmore, Malines play Chapelton, and Falkland up against Cavalier. Well, so after match week 18, let's take a look at the table. Ex-champions Arnett Gardens, for the first time this season, are top of the standings, registering the most wins by any of the teams. Mount Pleasant, having played one less than Arnett Gardens, are second on 36 points. Cavalier are also on 36 points, but with an inferior goal difference. Defending champions Harbour View, on the back of a 3-match winning streak, are fourth in the standings, and they are against a hapless Tivoli team this weekend. Well, Leger Williams, our JPL analyst, is on set with us. Leger, I know Jermaine Teddy Johnson is a celebrated figure in the Tivoli Gardens community, but no wins now in 6 matches, including losses to relegation-bound Chapelton. Is it fair to say, is he on the chopping block?
I think it's half and half, first of all. When it comes down to coaching, as it's a very volatile job, you have to do a lot. And Tivoli, I don't think they have provided him with everything that's necessary for him to succeed. So it's half and half. Yes, I don't think his tactics have been the best. Maybe some of his decision making hasn't been the best either.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, they don't have a lot of attacking talent. And their defense is so and so. Their midfield especially, I don't think is the best either. So it would be very unfortunate for him to sack him. I think they should keep him another year, try and build. And then maybe if they start the same way next season,
yes,
then maybe looking to get into someone different. But because before this run, where they've been winless in 4 losses out of those 6, they were doing pretty well. They were knocking on the door of the top 6. So I think it would be a bit unfair, especially with the prestige that he has, as you mentioned, in the community. So I'd say give him some more time.
Yeah,
okay.
The lack of success, though, Leger, is pretty compelling, because not only they haven't been winning, but they haven't been scoring either. I think they've gone 5 games consecutively without a goal. They had one last week, I think, where it was an own goal, against Dunbeholden. So the form is really, really wretched. I take your point about the standing that he has in the community and so on. And I actually like his body language on the sidelines and how he interacts with his players. You know, quite often when there's a little break, an injured player, he runs on to the sideline, hugs a player and talks encouragingly to the player. So there's a good look coming from his attitude and how he interacts with his players. But they need to start getting some results.
Yeah,
they definitely do. Systematically, as I mentioned, I don't think formationally they've been doing too well. They've been creating a lot of chances because of that. So a lot of the times you think about their games a few weeks ago against Arnett, where they scored first, and then Arnett came back and beat them. Then you talk about the game against Dunbeholden as well. They scored first, it was an own goal, but then they let Dunbeholden start to take control of the game. Once they get ahead, they don't take control of the game whatsoever. And then after that fact, it's always going to be an uphill battle. So I take your point. I do think that they're struggling a lot in a lot of aspects, but every week he has a new strike partnership up there, because he's just trying to find something to get them going, and it's just not working. So as I said, I think a lot of their issues are qualitative as opposed to tactical.
Okay.
Yeah, well, before we get into the commentary games on Sunday, which Mariah spoke about earlier on, a quick comment, since we were talking about coaches, about Donovan Duke's departure from Montego Bay United, because I don't think his departure is surprising, because Montego Bay United's coaching role is one of the most fluid that we've seen in the history of the Premier League. But what really went wrong with them? They started the season well, unbeaten in their first 4 games with 3 wins, and Duke appeared as if he had hit onto something early with Mobe, but things haven't gone well for them since then.
I think that's just another issue of, as you mentioned, Montego Bay United are a very impatient bunch when it comes down to the managerial situation. So I guess he would have been aware of that. He started well. But then when you get into it, you hire Donovan Duke, he's a defensive coach. You don't have a lot of attacking talent. He's getting the best out of what you can do with said team. Yes, they've been on the hand of some drubbings, but when it comes down to coaching a good defense, he's literally the best probably he can get in the island. And he has been working around. They're coming off a result against Arnett where they got the draw. They shouldn't have gotten anything out of that game. So it's tough again, but clearly they had a lot of expectations and he's not meeting them. So you can't really blame the owners from that sense.
Right. Well, the second match of Sunday's televised schedule will see last season's finalists Dunbeholden against seven-time champions Portmore. So, Leger, Dunbeholden, they're 2 points outside of a playoff place. Do you see them making the playoffs?
Ooh, that putting me on the spot.
Yeah, tough one.
Dunbeholden, it's if and but with them, because 1 week they'll beat a team convincingly, the other week they'll fall to a team that might be inferior to them. So it's going to be tough because Waterhouse are grinding out results at this point. And Portmore, I know I may be wasting faith, but Portmore should be higher up in the table. They have 10 draws. That is remarkable.
Yeah.
How do you play 70 games and you draw 10 of them? They have the second least defeats in the league. And on paper, especially after the January transfer window, they have one of the best squads on paper, or at least the best starting 11, and one of the best starting 11s on paper in the league. So they have to turn it around sometime, is my assumption, because they have a very quality coach as well in Philip Williams. So this could be a good week to do it. Let's see if they do it. But my guess is, to answer your initial question, I don't think Dunbeholden will make it in the playoffs this season.
Well, they've won only 2 of their last 7 games, Dunbeholden, but the fact that this is a St. Catherine derby kind of adds a little to the intensity of the match, because I know how players are when they get into derby situations, and I guess Dunbeholden probably have more experienced players in their roster than Portmore has, but maybe not so much now with a January transfer. But I find this an intriguing match, and I think it could go either way.
It is a very intriguing game, definitely. Both teams have a lot to play for. It's 7 versus 8. If Portmore win this game, they would overtake Dunbeholden in the standings because of goal difference. If Dunbeholden win, they would have an opportunity to pass Waterhouse, because Waterhouse are playing Mount Pleasant. And Mount Pleasant are one of the better teams in the league. We're assuming that maybe Mount Pleasant, if they were to beat Waterhouse, Dunbeholden could then pass Waterhouse again to go into 6th place. So big game, but it's going to be interesting. You mentioned the derby factor of it, St. Catherine derby. So Dunbeholden have 2 red cards in their last 3 games. So they've been a bit indisciplined, one might say, over the last couple of weeks. So that could play a factor as well.
Yeah, quick question before we leave that match. I glanced at a couple of the Dunbeholden matches in the past couple of weeks, and I'm not sure what's the story with Nicoy Christian. I saw him on the bench one afternoon. We know how much of a provider he is for the frontmen, one of the best passers in the Premier League. What's happening with Nicoy?
I'm not exactly sure myself, but whenever he has been on the bench and has come on, he hasn't looked himself whatsoever. He's been very loose with his passing. He doesn't look up to speed, one might say. So I'm not exactly sure why he's been out of the lineup. But I don't think if he was fully fit, then yes, he would have helped Dunbeholden.
Our producer Ramon just told us that he had a touch of the flu about 3 weeks ago, so it affected his match fitness.
Well, they've been saying he's had the flu for around 6-7 weeks now, so I'm not quite sure what kind of flu that is. But from my knowledge, I'm not exactly sure why he's been missing out.
Okay. All right. Well, Leger, of course, we want to thank you. We always welcome your presence on set. We'll take a break and come back. Stay with SportsMax on YouTube and follow us on all social pages for updates, news and entertainment.